At the age of 21, Nanette Christ had an illumination experience, seeing the presence of God that appeared to her as a diamond sun. Her spiritual gifts were enhanced as she was led to the path of higher knowledge. She and fellow spiritual traveler Desiree and met on that path and now come together to share with you the Diamond Sun secret. And welcome again to Diamond Sun Secret with Nanette Christ and Desiree Holmes-Sharini, your hosts. And why don't you introduce our topic?
Okay, we're going to follow up with our last program, talking more about gratitude, living without fear, living in love, and how that changes not only our body, minds, and souls, but our environment and affecting people around us.
Exactly. So to start off with, we were just talking about what we're going to talk about before turning on the camera. And some of you may be familiar with some of these charts that show different frequencies and words or feelings that they're associated with, from being a low frequency to a higher frequency, low energy, high energy, and it reflects positivity. And I'll share a chart on here when I edit. And some of the lowest energies are down around fear, for example, and the highest is either love or there may be something higher, but I'll have to review that chart and we can talk about it.
Actually saying the word God, I think, was the highest one I saw in the frequency chart. Yeah.
And so what does that mean? Frequencies and energy. It affects your mind, body, and spirit. And when you're living or experiencing fear, it really does have a detrimental effect on your health and mental well-being. And I think that's how, we're kind of tying that into our previous show, is how much fear that currently in the U.S., and this is November 2020, that there is so much fear being introduced for months now. If you watch the news, everything's terrible. And then, of course, the fear of, both sides of the coin worrying about the elections here in the U.S., the fear that's introduced by the governmental lockdowns, the fear of people losing their jobs. There's so much fear that's being propagated, and we talked about some possible reasons. But here we more want to talk about how to manage your own inner self and learn some about the frequency and what it does to you. So fear, I was just saying to Nanette, if you think about fear, right, when you're afraid, our natural instinct is to kind of protect ourselves and pull back and hide and be restrictive. And one of the things that happens with your body, for example, is your hands and feet and extremities get cold because your body's natural response to fear or a threat is to pull the blood into your core and even for it to go in and protect your organs. And so your hands get cold, your feet get cold, everything's restrictive, you pull in. And I'm going to show you on a chart the energy of fear is so very small. Your aura, your electromagnetic signature that expands beyond you becomes very small with fear. Now, in comparison, love is very, very big, and they've measured these energies, and it spreads out huge. And think of how you feel when feel love or you feel relaxed. Your hands get warm, your feet get warm, you feel warm, your heart, actually, think of the word, feels warm. You feel warm towards someone, and people around you feel good too. And I was just saying, comparing it to like a cat, for example, an animal. If you have a pet and your animal's comfortable and they feel safe, they're laying on their back with their legs and arms sprawled without a care, and they'll expose their belly. Whereas when they're afraid, you notice they're curled up in a ball, they're under the bed, and humans are just the same. And we all know that besides it not feeling good, it's just really bad for you, right? So what are your thoughts on the range, the high and the low of the frequency affecting our bodies and our minds?
Well, I'm sure that that's true, and whether or not we see the chart, we know what we feel. Um, and cats, for example, are usually very relaxed, and so when they stretch, that's one of the best forms of exercise for people too, is anything that's a stretching exercise with deep breathing. One of the things that removes fear right away is deep breathing. Once you control your breathing, you control your nervous system's response. That in turn goes in and adjusts the adrenals and the adrenaline that your body's pumping, which helps all the organs and all the functions of the body to be better. But it all starts here. Once we get past the fear brain, the monkey mind that we're being programmed with the mass media, with all the fear porn that's going on right now, which logically is way overblown beyond any reasonable doubt, we need to think about what can we do. Well, first of all, we need to cut off from the mass media, except for those networks that we feel are really promoting truth with facts that are backed up. In other words, they can be vetted, not editorial opinions, not just somebody said, informed sources say.
Informed sources that are unidentified.
Unidentified, not just the globalist stuff. Now, I personally like to watch One America News and Newsmax and evening shows of Fox News like Tucker. At least he's asking the right questions. But you have to find those sources that are good for you, that you're sure are not causing more fear in your body, mind, and soul. So deep breathing and yogic or stretching exercises are also very good. Also prayer and asking God in a state of gratitude and expectancy of good things to please bless you, your family, your community, and our nation and world in such a way that His will be revealed and you'll know how to take action. A lot of people live in fear because they're afraid to take action. So if they suppress their fear and their anger about the situation that so many are finding themselves in, they get depressed. But let's start with the fear and we'll work to the depression as we go through this. So one of the things that helps is when people have fear, they usually don't have enough iron in their blood, like steel, the will of steel. So you need to take organic plant-based iron, not the metal iron, the plant-based iron, or eat foods that have and promote good, strong blood that are organic. Beets come to mind immediately, black stock molasses. B vitamins help to move through the fear. As I mentioned earlier in another program, I've been a holistic health consultant and spiritual consultant for over 40 years. I'm best known for visionary art and for my ministry, but those are things that I have found really help people who are living in fear. Another one is a remedy called Rescue Remedy, which you can get at any health food store. It's good for any stress or any fear that you're living in right now. And quickly, remember, when you're in fear, you're not feeling like you can make the right decisions about your own life. So cut off from anything that's causing unreasonable fear. Move into constructive action in your mind and say, what can I do to change this? Fear comes from feeling powerless too. So when we take back our power, we're no longer living in fear. I told friends of mine, a number of women who are senior women this week, who called me up all hours of the day and night, totally in fear, about these techniques: meditation, deep breathing, prayer, trusting in the divine, taking these remedies, and take action. Don't just sit there and do nothing. Call your congressman, call your senators, call your local officials, write to them. Make sure that what needs to be done to change these unreasonable lockdowns and fear that we're living under the mass media control of so much of what's going on in our lives is going to be changed. So this is my advice to people initially, to move through fear. When the angel said in the Bible, fear not, it didn't mean don't feel fear. It meant you can feel the fear, but don't run away. Or don't become paralyzed. In other words, it's perfectly natural to feel fear, but there's things we can do to move through it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what you touched on as a life coach and hypnotherapist. I definitely get people that have anxiety and fear and feel stuck. And so one of the things that helps a lot is simply saying, when you're like, oh no, you just stop for a moment and look at it, sort of pull yourself out of it and look at it from a detached observer point of view and say, like you said, what can I do about this? Is there anything I can do to control this or change this? And so you brought up some things. If you're having fear about some of the things that are going on governmentally, there are things you can do. Take steps. Do what you can do. Then what you can't, if there's, what you can't change, it's like what they say. If you can't change it, it's like you have faith and give some faith to whatever your belief is. Either if you are absolutely agnostic or even atheist and just don't believe there is a higher power at all, have faith that this is just exactly what's supposed to be happening right now for whatever reason there may be. You can't question it. If you can't change it, just say there must be a reason and let go. Most people, you have some reference of a faith, universe, source, God, Jesus, Mother Mary, Buddha, whoever it may be. There is that higher power that you can just know has your back, and just let go of that fear, because the fear does nothing good for you. It's like, what is it doing for you? Think about it that way. Remaining in fear does not benefit you. So you do what you can, be aware, but then allow that fear to dissipate as you give that fear up to a higher power, saying, take this fear, I don't need it, and I trust. I have a friend who is a very Christian friend, and we got into this conversation about how afraid she was, and she's so afraid of this, and so afraid, and so afraid, and so afraid. And then I reminded her of this. It's like, well, you do believe that God is watching out for you. Well, yes. Then what are you afraid of? Because ultimately, the right thing is happening. Whatever it is, we just know. Just let it be. Let it be. Just allow the right thing to happen while still being diligent with what you can do, because we are given free will and power over what we do have power over. You brought up breathing too. And that's definitely another one, because you talk about natural remedies, natural ways to deal with stuff without even putting something in your body. Just going through that breathing. If you're feeling afraid, just take that slow, deep breath in, hold it, let it out, hold it, do it. It's called box breathing. So you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 5, hold for 5. And it will change the chemistry in your brain. Like you said, it will increase without a pill, without anxiety medicine, without a down or a depression medicine. It is a first step toward changing your inner world and how you're feeling. And there's so much that we can do, and people don't think about it. And I do. I don't think about some things sometimes. I'll be all wound up, and then I'm like, breathe. Just slow down,
Well, I want to tell a funny story. Decades ago, I was living out in the country. I had my art studio on the water in the Sassafras River. And just the week before, I'd had 2 other people in the car with me at night driving out in the country when this man came up and put a bubblegum machine on his car. And my mother, who was in the car, said, "It's the police. You've got to pull over." I said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Yes." So I pulled over, and I see this man coming with a big guy with cami on, and he's coming up, and he's not a policeman. And he's almost up to my door when I see him reach underneath here, so he's got a gun under his jacket. And he looks at me as I rolled the window down. He looks to see who else is in the car. He's drunk. And I realized in that moment that if I challenged him, argued with him, he could pull the gun, and I knew he was thinking of doing it any moment anyways. So he said, "How you doing, man?" I said, "It's fine," and smiled at him. I was just in that moment, I knew instinctively I had to slam on the gas and get out of there, which is what I did. I left him standing there. He ran back to his car.
Fine, Drew.
Chased us across 2 state lines at 120 miles an hour.
Wow.
Thank goodness there was a police station that I knew there, and I pulled in, Of course, my passengers were freaking out, but what else could I do? So
They were in fear.
I pulled in and honked the horn for the police to come out. And they just looked out the window and didn't do anything. This guy, being drunk, pulled in after us. So I got out of the car, went up to the door, and ran into the police station and said, "Go arrest him. He's pulled a gun on us and he's drunk." So they did. He got out of there then, and they did catch him. But about a week later, my car breaks down in the middle of the night. I'd been working at the Senate in that time, and I'm going back home to my studio, and it's pitch black. It's clouded. There's no street lights out in the country. There's nothing. There's not even a moon. And so I realized he might show up again.
He's out there roaming the roads.
Right, same road. So I climb out of the car, somewhat in fear, but hoping that I could do okay. And I had a blanket, so every time a car would come, I'd go off the shoulder, go into the gully, and pull the blanket over so nobody would see me. Which I thought. So they kept driving by, and I knew I was a couple miles from my house. So I'm almost to my house when suddenly I hear like this. In front of me, clunk, 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 clunk. And then I hear...
Whoa.
And it's right up here,
But you
about
can't
5
see
feet
it.
from me, but I can't see what it is. And it's huffing and puffing, and it's clumping. And I thought, that can't be a cow. And I thought, what in the world could it be? And in that instant, I realized, totally in fear, I was frozen. He stopped, and he's huffing at me, and he sounds mad. And I'm stopped because I can't see what it is. And I realized it must be a big buck. I didn't know at that age that bucks will actually attack humans during the rutting season.
I have seen it on video.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I sensed it. So sometimes you have to follow your instinct. And
No
my
kidding.
only instinct was, I can't run, I can't back away. And I just did what came natural. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Get out of my way!" As loud as I could. Man, he took off running. Clump,
Yeah.
clump, clump, up in the bushes. I made it home safely. So sometimes when we're in extreme fear in a crisis situation, we have to follow our instincts, because that's how our ancestors survived with us until today. But taking action is an important part of not living in fear. And that
Right.
action can be internal, or it can be external, or it can be both.
Right. And I think you make a good point that there are legitimate things to be afraid of, like big guys with guns and camo and giant bucks. These are legitimate things to be afraid of. And I think that's the point of what we're trying to share here, is that what happens, and maybe you've heard this on other shows in other areas, but it bears repeating, that we as a society often are at this anxiety and level of fear that is not called for. There's a sense of fear that we like this baseline is fear instead of a baseline of relaxation. So we're in constant fear, and it creates stress, anxiety, physical symptoms, and I'll list a few. Rapid heartbeat, jitteriness, cold hands and feet, stomach upset, headaches. All of these things can be manifestations of living at a level of low frequency, of having constant fear. There's also, I want to say there's, heart problems, things that will manifest and create health issues. One of the things that I study and I like to share is from the Heart Math Institute, that they've been doing these studies about the intelligence of the heart and some of the processes and breathing exercises and mental exercises, which I'll actually bring up here, that can help adjust your inner self. And also they've done studies, which is always nice to have studies, everybody likes proof, that they have shown that it improves longevity, it helps decrease a lot of disease, it has helped sports performance, all sorts of things. And that simple process is a slow, deep breathing process. And then imagine breathing in and out of the chest. Have you ever done this?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Breathing in and out of the heart, as if your heart could breathe. And then the magic step is to bring in a feeling of gratitude or love, and actually feel that, like bring up the memory of someone, or holding your pet or your child, or the love you feel from someone, or the gratitude for nature. Somewhere, somebody, you can find that feeling in your body for when you've just felt really, really pleasant, happy, good, something that makes you smile. It may just be laying on the beach on a beautiful sunny day with your eyes closed, and just bringing that emotion in and allowing that emotion to stay inside your body while you do this breathing, and that will change your chemistry. And if you do it for a couple minutes, even like 2 minutes, it has a lasting effect, almost like working out. You know, they say that if you lift weights and build the muscles, that effect goes with you during the day. So this also has a lasting beneficial effect that builds on itself. So that's also a really good technique. And if you go to Heart Math Institute, you'll find all these studies and more on how to do that exercise.
So a lot of people now obviously are living in fear because of the COVID and because of lack of income or lack of business or any number of things that have been artificially, superficially imposed on healthy people. This in itself is not healthy for society.
Right.
And so now they've realized, too late, I think, and some people haven't realized or don't care, that it is causing more harm than it is good. And also it's been proven in many countries that the techniques that are being used, such as lockdowns, are not showing to be more successful than letting people out with other reasonable precautions. So because that is the basis of most people's fear today, which leads to depression, we need to address that and realize that, first of all, 99.9% of everybody is going to die from COVID, and that is statistically proven. Second of all, we need to feel free enough in our souls to do what we can do to survive and to prosper. So if our business is closed and we're not receiving enough to live on, we need to find alternative ways to survive. I personally know of former Broadway and Hollywood stars that are out driving Ubers or whatever they could do to make an income. So we have to think about other ways and take action so that we don't have a basis of fear. Just as Desiree said, having faith that we'll be guided is one of the first and most important things. So when I feel too anxious about something and it's ongoing, besides doing the things I already talked about, I try to find something that's going to make me feel happy, whether it's internally in my bliss mode, my pleasant scene. Going outside into nature is really important, because getting enough sunlight, feeling like you're in a new happy environment, someplace beautiful, is also going to make you feel much better. And doing something that's a creative outlet. Maybe you always wanted to read something or write something or paint something or sing something or compose. Any creative outlet, arts and crafts are good too, to help you to move into your creative space and out of fear. Everybody has particular things that trigger them. Maybe it's just listening to that beautiful, inspiring music. And some people need to have a good cry to release that energy that is causing the anxiety in the first place, because it might have triggered something in our conscious or unconscious past. And we may get more in-depth into that in the future. But I want to get into depression for a minute now, because half of the young people in America, it's said, are statistically have considered suicide, and suicides and abuse in the home have gone way up during this lockdown period. So much so that it's incredibly alarming, as well as the crime on the streets, which has been permitted in many places because they let a lot of the felons out because of COVID. If masks worked, they would have given those guys masks, and they could have stayed in prison and not victimized
instead of send
more
them
people.
Out to there's something wrong with that
something
picture.
wrong with that
There's
too,
something
which
fishy there.
Another thing we need to question everything about. But for depression, there are certain things that will help. Now, Desiree knows I had 11 family members, the entire family, pass on in as many years, and not to mention all the legal things that I had to deal with, and giving up my own activities. So I was really feeling down after a while when I had time to process this. Even though my faith was, and I knew that they were still with me in the spiritual world, it was still overwhelming. So I started to take Rescue Remedy, dark chocolate, which is a natural mood elevator.
Sure.
And cashew nuts. 2 hands full of cashews have been proven to be equivalent to a dose of Prozac.
They're great.
And if you're not a vegetarian, eat turkey, especially latter part of the day, because it may make you really relaxed if you eat a lot of it when you're ready to call it a night. So those are three things. And if you're really in bad shape, do all three. Watch comedies that are wholesome comedies on television,
Yeah.
or watch something that makes you feel like, oh, happy and
Yeah.
romantic and brings back happy memories, maybe the Hallmark Channel or Turner Classic Movies or a travelogue.
Yeah. Oh, I Love Lucy's. Or
I
something.
Love Lucy, yes, something that'll make you laugh.
I like The Big Bang Theory. I think so.
And Tim Allen, he's funny too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So think of things that will bring you a little bliss each day, and find time to do that little bliss thing for yourself.
Yeah, and you know what? Some people have, and I do too, different, like maybe little, I want to call them ceremonies, or things that for you, when you're doing that, can represent that space. And you think of, I kind of think of, like, say, a Japanese tea ceremony, for example. The focus and the concentration on the creating the tea and intention going into that, and it's a complete focus. So when you talked about creativity, reading, creating, the magic of that is because your focus is in that, and you might even lose time, but you're not thinking of anything else. If you get really absorbed, that's what's beautiful about it. So sometimes you can even create your own ceremony. I want to say that I can't think of the right word. Routine, ceremony, there's another word for it. Can you think of it for me?
A habit?
No, like say if you lay out a beautiful cloth and you light a candle.
A ritual.
Thank you. Ritual, that's the word I'm trying to think of. That you can create a ritual that for you represents that peaceful place, or that place of prayer or meditation, and set the atmosphere. So we, like I said, we're always like kind of like running and going, and to take that time to say, what beautiful thing do you own that maybe you just want to even sit and look at it and appreciate it, sort of in a meditative way. If you like crystals and candles, you can create sort of a little space and let that beautiful energy be there while you sit and just look at them and enjoy them. And you don't even have to necessarily think anything, but focus on the beauty and allow your mind to let go of other outside interfering thoughts. And like walk in nature, if you choose a space, a place, or a thing to represent your peace, sort of like how a lot of people carry a lucky rock or a coin or something. When they hold it, it helps you calm, or it helps you feel safe or secure or lucky. So choose a thing, a place, a ritual that is your go-to, that you can carry with you or even think of, and that will change your brain chemistry. It'll start to change your emotions and raise that frequency.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like today I went outside and it was terribly windy the last few days, and my beautiful, gorgeous, double blooming peach begonia was just all on its side.
Oh.
I said, oh, you poor thing. But there was a beautiful flower, picked it up, brought it in, just was absorbed in the beauty of that flower after feeling sad about everything getting damaged. And I decided to put it in a little vase right underneath one of my paintings, which are visionary art paintings. Mother Mary, Archangel Michael, Jesus, St. Francis, the Buddha. I have all of them that I've painted. And so those are my focal points. I put them right where I see them when I first get up in the morning, right where I see them when I'm sitting down on my sofa in my dining room. I have this not only beautiful, inspirational person, but I feel I'm absorbing their virtues, their serenity, their goodness as I'm looking, and their lives are inspiring me without my even having to think about it. So I become entrained with their energy. Mm-hmm. And then if I take, this is a little ritual, I'll take a little drink or a glass of water, and I'll put it down in front, and I say my prayers, and I put the intention of what it is that I need to heal in that water or in that drink. And you can actually do it in a magical way as well, with a 10-sided figure, and write what you want and then put the glass there. But I don't have to do that anymore. So I just put it in there, and then when I drink it, that changes the body chemistry of my whole body. And we talked about it in another program. Dr. Emoto and other scientists have worked with water to prove that what we focus on, what we feel, what we intend, changes the molecular structure of the water and even changes the sacred geometry, the snowflake-like forms that will appear if it's a positive thought, and also conversely break it up into really ugly forms if it's a negative, destructive thought. So in the same way that we put it into the water that we drink, and that's why we pray over our food, not only for gratitude, but for transformation, we take that liquid into our bodies, which is also mostly water. And so when we raise our energy and meditate on beautiful things, we participate in actions that are good and virtuous, of service to others and to God. When we take those things into our bodies that are wholesome, and we also go through the cleansing, then our bodies change too, and that changes our spirit. So it's an interactive dynamic between body, mind, and soul. So the first thing is work through the fear, and we've given you a lot of tools to do that now, and you can find out what works best for you through trial and error. I found that it's a combination of things, and it can change from day to day. Another one that can help is sunlight, of course. You can solarize your water by putting it in the sun with color films if you want to use color healing. You can use aromatherapy, which is really, really helpful. And but don't use synthetic oils. Only use the real essential oils, which are available almost everywhere now. You did a little study, and you have time to study to find out what works for you and what's needed for you. When I had to go through so many lost loves, and my spouse had passed on as well as the rest of the family members, I found out that the remedy for lost love is lilac, which is hard to find. It's a fragrance that's hard to find. But I just spray it on my pillow, and boom, I wasn't feeling grief about it anymore. So think of all these things and try them little by little and see what works for you.
And I think a lot of times when you own the oils, sometimes even intuitively, once you allow yourself to trust yourself, if you have the oils intuitively, you might reach for one or another. And yesterday I did a hypnotic regression for someone, and before going I used the frankincense. And today before our session I was reaching for that, and then I said, no, I think today I want rose.
That's what I was just thinking when you said that.
So it's they also, and I'd love to do in a future show or workshop even, go into a lot more detail about the frequencies of essential oils, flowers, all these things that you can actually use in conjunction with thought intention. But when I talked about the emotions having frequency, these different essential oils have different frequencies and are used for different levels and different things. And they, when you smell them, when you put them on, they actually integrate and interact with your own body and mind. So that, that might be a workshop that we can put together.
I think that'd be a good
idea. That would
be
great.
We can do essential oils, and there's now a lot of science to back up how the essential oils work and how they affect the body, mind, and soul. The same thing with colors. The same thing with specific foods. The same thing with specific frequencies of sounds.
Oh, sound is,
Yeah, so we can do all of that. There's crystal resonance that's a little more advanced, but I think we can focus on those. And then you'll have more tools to help yourself, your family, and your loved ones.
Yeah, definitely. And we had talked about that some time ago, the idea of doing a whole multi-part workshop on frequencies and how to harness the power of these different things. And sound is a big thing. Oh, it's gorgeous. So like when Nanette talked about listening to sound, there are different levels, different hertz frequencies, levels that will affect how you feel. And so that could be part of your ritual too. Find either the music or even investigate, levels of sound that increase a sense of love and well-being. Play that while you're doing your thing. And I find personally that, things that remind me of a certain time or a certain era, sometimes I'll play that and I'll just calm down. Certainly, like the difference between, say, playing the Rolling Stones or my latest favorite playlist is on, I can't say her name because she'll speak up, Alexa over there. She'll just pop up and say what. But it's a playlist called, what's it, Cocktail Hour. But it's all the like 1960s, lounge music, and it just reminds me, I'll put that on in the evening, and it reminds me of people in their cocktail dresses and that era of Frank Sinatra and all that. So it's kind of feel-good music, and everybody has their own sounds of music, and depending on what mood I'm in. Now, if I was meditating, it wouldn't be that. It would be maybe Om chanting, and they have different levels of that you can listen to too. It's pretty cool. So,
yeah, I think you have to tailor the music to what it is you're trying to create and do. Mm-hmm. So I always picked music that went with what I was creating when I was painting. Mm-hmm. The theme, the color, the mood of the painting. Like, I would never listen to heavy metal no matter what, because it actually destroys the cells in your body, in my opinion, and there is some evidence to prove that. Plato said you can destroy or restore a whole nation depending on changing its music. And so we have to look at that too, and it works as a resonant frequency with color and other things that we're going to talk about more in depth in the future. So you may want toe tapping music when you're trying to do something that's going to take a more upbeat part of your activity, and you may want to take something that's soothing and meditative on another occasion. If you're feeling down, you want to listen to happy music. Yeah. If you want to just think about something spiritual, like for me, something like Clair de Lune, classical music that is beautiful and melodious and has a lot of flutes and stringed instruments, is going to help. So what mood you want can be created through the music, and it will actually change and transform your entire mood, just music alone. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they use noise machines for crowd control in some places. They will just blare some hideous sounds to make people leave. So that's what you can do at the end of a party. Just
Also, if you have rats or raccoons in your attic, you can do the same thing. Just turn on loud heavy metal and they'll run away.
Actually,
even they're smart enough.
I have seen these little sound machines that play at a certain frequency that we don't really hear, but they're supposed to get rid of rodents.
Well, my mother had some of those. The problem was I didn't even know she had plugged one of those things in. It disrupts all the electrical and frequencies of your whole house. So everybody living in it is affected, including the humans. And all of a sudden, I was feeling like this irritation in my nerves, as if I had prickles all over my body. I said, Mom, something is wrong. Something has changed the whole frequency of this house, and it's not healthy. What's going on? And it took a little while before she realized she'd plugged this thing on in the laundry room to chase the rats out, and the mice rather, but it wasn't helping the people either.
And you wouldn't hear it, but it's affecting you.
You wouldn't hear it. It was beyond our range, but we would feel it. Yeah. So I would be really cautious about that particular thing for any length of time. Some people say you can do it in 48 hours, but I would vacate the house if I was going to do it for 48 hours even, based on my previous experience.
Or just invite the mice to leave, have a little conversation with them, Like I actually, I had this wasp in my bedroom, and I was on the phone with someone. I said, "Oh, there's this wasp in here," and the person says, "Well, just ask it to leave." And I said, "Well, I hadn't thought of that." And I said, "Excuse me, would you mind leaving? The window's open for you. This is inside. You belong outside." And the wasp flew out the window. Yeah. And I said, "Oh, how about that?" So maybe even recognize that on some level there's a consciousness, and maybe before killing them or blaring them out with bad sound, maybe you might just have a little psychic conversation and invite them to leave and provide a way for them to get out.
Well, that works with birds for me, but with rats, I just couldn't get them to sit still and listen. And they were off running someplace.
Yeah, they're too busy. They're at a low frequency. Anyway, so it's been about half an hour. Do you have, we're going to talk more about all of this. Like there's always more interesting information. I think for me, our message to you is Don't live in fear, and there are many ways that you can have your awareness first. Have the awareness. Am I living in fear? What do I feel like every day? How's my body feel? What's my mind? What am I filling my mind with? And how can you change that so you aren't living in fear? And you might want to think of some of these ideas and techniques that we've talked about here.
Yeah, and especially in this time, we can be in gratitude, enjoy the holidays with your family.
Yes.
Let's be grateful for all the wonderful things that we've had as Americans that others don't have. And then we can not only attract more good things in our lives, but also build for a better future.
That's right.
Okay.
So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you.
Bye.